The morning in Baghdad began like any other, with the sun creeping slowly over the Tigris River and casting a golden hue across the ancient city. But this morning felt different, as though the city itself sensed something monumental was about to unfold. The streets were alive with movement, but not the usual rush of honking cars and merchants calling out their wares. There was an undercurrent of anticipation, a subtle tension that made every glance, every gesture, feel charged with significance. People walked briskly, clutching their phones, constantly checking notifications, and whispering to one another, as though sharing a secret too important to speak aloud in full. In front of shop windows, people had already started to gather. Small groups of men and women leaned close to the flickering TV screens, their eyes glued to the scrolling news tickers at the bottom of the display. The words were simple but explosive. Asterisk, a new IQD rate revealed Frank26 urgent update. Asterisk, it wasn't just the bold letters that caught their attention. It was the sense of urgency behind them. The broadcast promised information that could change lives, fortunes, and futures in ways that were difficult to imagine. Phones appeared in every hand, cameras recording the moment, messages being sent in a flurry, screenshots shared across social media. A single news update had managed to capture the collective consciousness of the city, sending ripples of excitement and anxiety through every neighborhood, cafe, and market stall. At a nearby cafe, tables that usually hosted the morning rush of coffee drinkers and students now served as impromptu gathering points for news consumption. People leaned forward, elbows on the table, their coffee steaming in forgotten cups as they stared at the small TV mounted on the wall. Some murmured in disbelief, repeating the numbers aloud as though speaking them would make them more real. "Look, did you see that? The rate, it's actually changing." Others, more cautious, whispered warnings and speculation. "It's too sudden," one man muttered, his eyes darting nervously. "Are you sure this is official? The government would have announced it first." But the flickering images of Frank26's face on the screens and his urgent tone silenced doubts for many. The clarity in his announcement, the way he laid out the numbers, made it impossible to ignore. Outside, the streets themselves seemed to hum with a new energy. Merchants opened their shutters earlier than usual, curious onlookers stopping mid-step to glance at their phones or at TV displayed in storefronts. Children, sensing the excitement in the adults around them, tugged at their parents' sleeves asking what was happening. "Papa, why is everyone staring at the TV?" one boy asked, his eyes wide with innocent curiosity. Parents could barely answer. They themselves were caught in a whirlwind of speculation and amazement. The entire city felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for the first ripple of what could be a historic moment. Even the usual background noise of Baghdad, the chatter, the distant sounds of engines, the calls of street vendors, felt different. Each sound carried a sharper edge, a reminder that today was no ordinary day. Everywhere, people were connected not just by the physical space of the streets, but by a shared sense of anticipation. The news ticker seemed to pulse like a heartbeat across the city, a rhythmic reminder that change had arrived and that everyone needed to pay attention. Conversations were punctuated by exclamations as residents tried to make sense of what they were seeing. "Did you see it? The dinar, the rate just jumped. It can't be. Are we dreaming? Frank26 says it's real. Look at his charts." Some turned to their phones to verify, scrolling through social media posts, reading comments, and watching clips of Frank26's announcement that had already gone viral. Every swipe, every tap reinforced the reality of the moment. People in Baghdad were not just passive consumers of news. They were participants reacting, sharing, speculating, and trying to anticipate the consequences of a shift that could affect every transaction, every investment, every household. Friends texted friends, families called family members in other cities, and within minutes, the news had spread far beyond the original broadcast. The sense of immediacy was almost overwhelming, and for many, the feeling was addictive. Meanwhile, in offices and financial institutions, the atmosphere was electric. Employees who had arrived expecting a routine day were now glued to screens, watching exchange rates fluctuate in real time. The news of the new IQD rate had created a surge in curiosity and concern. Bank clerks paused mid-task to confer with colleagues, analyzing charts, comparing figures, and trying to predict what the new numbers would mean for their clients and the economy at large. Each glance at the screen seemed to confirm what people had feared and hoped, that the dinar was moving in a way that could be historic, a shift that had the potential to redefine financial realities across Iraq. Even ordinary citizens, those with no background in finance or economics, felt the gravity of the moment. Shopkeepers, taxi drivers, students, and homemakers alike found themselves caught in a web of speculation, unable to escape the intensity of the news. Social media feeds overflowed with posts, videos, and live streams from every corner of Baghdad, each offering a slightly different perspective, but all converging on the same message. Something big had happened and it demanded attention. The line between reality and rumor blurred, but the consensus was clear. This was a day that would be remembered, a day that could mark the beginning of a new chapter for the Iraqi dinar and for the people who relied on it. By mid-morning, the city had transformed into a mosaic of anticipation and cautious excitement. Streets that were usually just thoroughfares for commuting became gathering points where people paused to watch TV mounted outside shops or on public screens. Conversations were punctuated by gestures toward the screens, pointing, nodding, questioning, and exclaiming as the numbers scrolled across. The energy was contagious. Even those who tried to remain indifferent found themselves drawn in, unable to resist the pull of history in motion. Everyone was asking the same questions, and everyone was searching for the same answers. What did this mean for tomorrow, for next week, for the future of the dinar? As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the city remained captivated. Every glance, every conversation, every shared screenshot was a thread in a vast tapestry of communal curiosity and excitement. Baghdad had become more than a city that morning. It had become a living, breathing witness to change, a collective audience to a story unfolding in real time. And at the center of it all, on every TV screen and every phone, Frank26's urgent voice reminded everyone that this was no ordinary update. This was a moment that could shape the course of lives, fortunes, and futures across Iraq, and everyone was watching, waiting, and wondering what would come next. Inside a modest office tucked away on a quiet street in Baghdad, Frank26 sat surrounded by screens that flickered with live updates from banks, social media feeds, and television networks. The glow of the monitors painted his face with a pale, electric light, accentuating the intensity in his eyes. Today was unlike any other day. He could feel it in the way the air seemed thicker, almost charged with electricity, and in the nervous energy of his team, who moved quickly between cameras, microphones, and control panels. Every moment felt critical, every second mattered. The announcement he was about to deliver would be broadcast to thousands, perhaps millions, and the weight of that responsibility was not lost on him. He leaned forward, adjusting the microphone in front of him, his fingers briefly hovering over the keyboard to make one last check of the official rates coming in from the Central Bank of Iraq. His heart beat steadily, but his mind raced with calculations, projections, and the myriad possibilities that could follow this new IQD rate. He knew that even a fraction of a misstep could create confusion or panic, and the last thing he wanted was misinformation spreading. Yet there was no hesitation in his demeanor. His reputation had been built on delivering urgent updates with clarity and authority, and today would be no different. The cameras were rolling, red lights glowing like warning signals that a momentous event was underway. Frank26 took a deep breath and looked at his team. Nods were exchanged, silent affirmations that everything was ready. Then, with a click of a button, the live broadcast began. His voice, calm yet charged with urgency, carried over the airwaves. "Good morning, Iraq." He began, "Today we witness a historic shift in our nation's financial landscape. The Iraqi dinar, long the subject of speculation and anticipation, has officially moved. The new rates are now displayed across national television screens, and this is not a drill. Prepare yourselves, because these changes may affect everyone in the country." Outside, the city seemed to respond in real time. Cafes, shops, and homes were glued to screens, people leaning closer, straining to catch every word. In the bustling markets, merchants paused mid-sale, customers halting their bargaining mid-sentence. Even children sensed the gravity of the moment, asking questions in hushed tones as their parents whispered answers that were often just as uncertain as the numbers on the screen. Each word from Frank26 reverberated through the city, a ripple that transformed ordinary routines into a shared experience of anticipation and cautious excitement. Frank26 continued, breaking down the numbers with meticulous precision. Charts appeared on the screen behind him, color-coded and dynamic, showing fluctuations, comparisons, and potential forecasts. "Here you can see," he explained, pointing to a graph, "how the IQD has shifted against the US dollar. These figures have been confirmed by the central bank. We advise everyone to stay calm, verify their sources, and avoid panic-driven decisions." His voice was steady, but the urgency in his tone reminded viewers that this was not a time for complacency. Every segment of the population, from casual citizens to professional investors, needed to understand the implications of these changes. In offices around Baghdad, financial analysts leaned over desks covered with papers, calculators, and laptops. Phones rang constantly as colleagues checked in. Clients demanded explanations, and news outlets scrambled for quotes. The energy was palpable. Each new update from Frank26 seemed to accelerate the pace, as if the city itself had synchronized with his broadcast. People debated the potential impact on their businesses, their savings, and their family's future. Speculation ran rampant, but it was tempered by the clear authority in Frank26's voice. He was not just reporting numbers, he was providing guidance, reassurance, and context in a moment of uncertainty. Outside the office, the streets of Baghdad were alive with reaction. Passers-by gathered around television screens mounted on shop walls, standing shoulder to shoulder in crowded curiosity. Conversations erupted spontaneously, voices overlapping, questions flying in every direction. "Did you hear what he said about the new rate?" "Yes, but what does it mean for our savings?" "The dinar is moving. This could be huge." Phones were everywhere, recording the scenes, streaming live, sending updates to friends and family in other parts of the country. The city had transformed into a living audience, each citizen a participant in an unfolding story of economic change. Meanwhile, Frank26 shifted to the next phase of his broadcast, addressing potential scenarios and cautionary advice. "It is important to remember," he said, "that while these rates are official, they may fluctuate in the coming days. We encourage everyone to monitor the updates carefully and consult financial experts before making significant decisions." Behind him, maps and tables shifted dynamically, illustrating trends and providing visual clarity. His team worked silently, executing each command with precision, aware that every frame, every chart, and every word mattered in shaping public understanding. As the broadcast continued, social media erupted. Clips of Frank26's live update were shared repeatedly, hashtags trending within minutes, and discussions spilling onto platforms where people debated predictions and possibilities. Influencers, bloggers, and financial commentators picked up the narrative, amplifying the urgency and excitement. The lines between the televised broadcast and online chatter blurred, creating a seamless flow of information that reached even the most remote corners of Iraq. For Frank26, this was exactly the impact he had hoped for, a combination of immediacy, accuracy, and engagement that ensured the nation was informed and connected in real time. Hours passed, yet the energy in the office remained undiminished. Frank26 paused only briefly to review the latest feedback, adjusting explanations and answering questions through live segments. Outside, the city continued to react. Exchange offices reported unprecedented inquiries, banks experienced surges in online activity, and citizens discussed strategies for navigating the new economic landscape. The atmosphere was electric, filled with a mix of hope, anxiety, and curiosity. People were not just observers, they were active participants in a historic moment, that promised to reshape their financial realities. By the time the broadcast concluded, Frank26's message had left an indelible mark. He signed off with a final reminder: stay informed, stay calm, and be ready to adapt. Today is historic, but tomorrow will require vigilance and wisdom. We will continue to provide updates as events unfold. The office erupted in quiet relief and satisfaction. The team exchanged looks of accomplishment, knowing that their work had not only conveyed information, but had also captured the attention and imagination of a nation. Outside, Baghdad slowly returned to a semblance of routine, but the excitement lingered. Cafes remained crowded, streets filled with conversations, and televisions continued to replay segments of the broadcast. People reflected on what they had seen, compared notes, and speculated about the future. The city had experienced a shared moment of history, a collective witnessing of change that would be remembered for years. And at the center of it all, Frank26 had stood as both messenger and guide, translating complex financial data into a narrative that every citizen could understand, react to, and share. By evening, Baghdad had been transformed into a city on edge yet brimming with excitement. The morning shock of the new IQD rate had rippled through every street, neighborhood, and market, leaving people in a state of cautious anticipation. Cafes that had earlier been quiet now buzzed with animated discussions. Groups of friends debated what the new figures meant, gesturing at their phones, showing screenshots of Frank26's urgent update, and consulting online forums where the speculation seemed endless. Every corner, every gathering, seemed to vibrate with the collective curiosity and anxiety of a city processing a historic moment in real time. Families gathered in living rooms, huddled around flickering television screens, replaying the day's events. Parents explained the implications to why, died children who had never fully understood the importance of currency rates before. This is history in motion, one father explained, trying to simplify the complex numbers for his young daughter. People are watching because this might change everything for the country. Children repeated the numbers aloud, fascinated by the colorful graphs and charts on the screen, while adults whispered conjectures, debating strategies, and reflecting on past speculation about Iraqi Dinar. Even the elderly, often removed from daily financial discussions, tuned in, their interest piqued by the magnitude of the broadcast. Social media was ablaze. Videos of Frank26's live broadcast had been shared thousands of times, accompanied by reactions ranging from astonishment to disbelief. Hashtags referencing the IQD revaluation trended nationwide, and influencers jumped on the story, providing commentary, analysis, and even humor to lighten the tension. Memes comparing the dinar's previous stagnation to the sudden surge appeared alongside screenshots of real-time graphs. Online forums became arenas for debate, where amateur investors, seasoned economists, and ordinary citizens exchanged ideas, predictions, and cautionary advice. The conversation was relentless, and it seemed that the city itself had moved into the digital sphere, bridging physical and virtual engagement. Outside, the streets maintained a charged energy. Exchange offices reported queues longer than any day in memory, as people lined up to check the official rates, to convert money, or simply to witness the flow of economic change firsthand. Merchants discussed strategies in hushed tones, contemplating price adjustments or ways to safeguard profits against the new valuation. Taxi drivers and street vendors speculated about the effects on fares and daily expenses. Even routine transactions seemed amplified in significance, as if every coin or note passing hands carried the weight of the day's extraordinary financial announcement. In the central business districts, analysts and traders worked with a frenetic intensity. Spreadsheets, charts, and financial tools were reviewed, recalculated, and debated endlessly. Clients demanded clarity, seeking advice on how to respond to a rate shift that promised opportunity yet held potential risk. Conference rooms were filled with discussions, urgent calls, and last-minute adjustments. Every piece of data mattered, every calculation could influence critical decisions, and the pressure to act quickly without succumbing to panic was palpable. Meanwhile, Frank26 remained a central figure in the ongoing narrative. Replays of his broadcast continued to dominate screens in homes, offices, and public spaces. People cited his guidance repeatedly, referencing the calm authority in his voice as a counterbalance to the chaos of speculation. He had become more than a broadcaster. He was a reference point, a trusted lens through which Iraqis could interpret a moment that might have otherwise felt overwhelming. His advice, both cautionary and explanatory, helped countless viewers navigate the uncertainty with measured confidence. As night fell, Baghdad's skyline flickered with the lights of ongoing activity. Cafes and homes remained bright with glowing screens, while social media feeds continued to stream reactions from across the city. People shared stories of their first encounters with the new rate, of urgent calls to family members, of quick trips to banks and exchange offices. Each story reinforced a collective sense of witnessing history, of being part of something larger than oneself. Conversations extended into late hours as friends and neighbors tried to parse what was real, what was speculation, and what the immediate implications would be for their finances and daily lives. Amid the excitement, there were also voices of caution. Financial advisors appeared on live streams and television segments, reminding the public that volatility was a natural part of any currency shift. They advised measured action, warning against impulsive decisions driven by emotion. This is an opportunity, yes. One analyst said, but it is also a time for prudence. Understand your investments, know your risks, and don't let the excitement override common sense. For many citizens, this advice was welcome, providing a grounded perspective in the midst of a whirlwind of speculation. Yet the allure of opportunity was hard to resist. Small investors discussed strategies late into the night, reviewing trends, comparing previous forecasts, and considering potential moves. Families debated whether to convert savings, make purchases, or simply observe for the time being. Conversations in markets, coffee shops, and homes blended financial analysis with personal stories, creating a rich tapestry of human reaction to a single, historic event. Every decision, every opinion felt meaningful, as though the city itself had been swept into a collective act of economic participation. By the end of the night, Baghdad seemed transformed. The day's energy had shifted from raw astonishment to a mixture of reflection, cautious optimism, and ongoing curiosity. People had witnessed a financial event unfold in real time, experienced the immediacy of a broadcast that reached every corner of the city, and engaged with information in ways previously unimaginable. Frank26's live update had not only informed but had united a diverse population in shared attention and anticipation. In homes across the city, families turned off their televisions reluctantly, still talking through the implications and sharing what they had learned. Street vendors packed up for the day and shopkeepers dimmed their lights, though conversation continued into the night. Analysts closed spreadsheets and offices emptied, yet the sense of excitement lingered, a quiet hum of possibility that had permeated every part of Baghdad. It was a city changed not physically, but emotionally and psychologically, bound together by a historic moment that had captured attention, sparked discussion, and left everyone wondering what the next chapter would bring. Even as the city settled, there remained a sense that the story was not over. This was just the beginning, a ripple that would expand, influencing decisions, discussions, and destinies in the days to come. People went to sleep with thoughts of new rates, economic possibilities, and the ongoing updates from Frank26 replaying in their minds. The new IQD rate had not just shifted a number on a screen, it had shifted the consciousness of a nation, leaving Baghdad awake in spirit, buzzing with anticipation, and ready for whatever tomorrow would bring.